What's happening, everybody? This is Jared with the Inner Squared Circle, and welcome here to this month's edition of Superstar Academy. This is the roadmap to a world-class career. So let me give you a little insight as to what this is all about. A few months ago in the Superstar Academy group, we did a seminar called The Four Levels of Independent Wrestling. And what this seminar was about, if you haven't seen it yet, I strongly recommend you go to see it, is what this was is there are people in the business that have been in the business for 5, 10, or 15 years, and what's happened is because they've been told that there's only one way to do things, like you have to pay your dues and things of that nature. What happens is they've actually been living a groundhog's day career. And if you want, go take a listen to that seminar right now. It's a great one. And so basically what the concept of that though is, in the beginning, when you first start out, when you're first starting out in wrestling, there are problems that are just normal. So when you first start out, you're not going to know how to get bookings. You're going to have to set up the ring for free. Like there's certain problems that are going to show up when you first start out, and that's totally normal, right? But if you're going through your career and you're 5 years in and you still haven't gotten your first paid booking, or you're 10 years in and you don't know how to get out of your local area, what we've come to find out is there's common problems, and these problems, if they're not addressed early on, can be very, very detrimental to your career. So there are normal problems that are going to happen early, but if you don't learn to transition out of them at a fast enough speed, they're going to be detrimental to your career in the long term. So what we did is, to give you a quick recap, what we talked about on last month's seminar with the four levels of independent wrestling is, because we're wrestlers, we have certain terms and words and phrases for things, like kayfabe or heat or babyface heel, which allows us a totally different language, right? So go imagine being at work or being with your non-wrestling friends or being with your family even, and go tell your mom kayfabe, right? She has no idea what you're talking about. But go tell a wrestler kayfabe, you guys have a different level of understanding because you guys have common terms. So what I've discovered in my career as coaching wrestlers and producing talent is, a lot of wrestlers are stuck in their career because they don't realize there's another level. And so what happens is, anytime that somebody's stuck in a certain level, it's because they haven't realized there's a better way yet. Not that there isn't a better way, but what that really means is that people within the industry, the trainers, the gatekeepers, the people that are responsible for helping you guys get out to the next level, have really done you a disservice because they haven't educated you enough to let you know that there are different levels to the business, right? The way that people typically would tell you to do your career is pay your dues, be humble, work your ass off, and someday it'll work out. That is the strategy for a whole lot of people. Now, let's flip that on its head. Let's go take a business. Let's take a business and say, you know what? I have no money. I have no idea what I'm even going to do, but I just know that if I go out there and say, "Hey everybody, I got a business and I got a lot of passion for it," eventually, if I have no customers long enough and I'm on the verge of bankruptcy long enough, pretty soon the government's going to come in and give me $1 billion. Right? That is what a lot of people are living their careers like. And so it's not independent wrestlers' faults. It really isn't. Because people come to me, they go, "I'm 5 years in and I'm still working the concession stand for a free spot in the battle royal." Right? At that point, I gotta say, the gatekeepers have done you wrong. I was listening to an Al Snow interview. It was today, actually. It was fascinating. I love Al Snow. I think he's got a great mind for the business. I think he shoots people straight. I think he's amazing. And what he talked about is, he was paying your dues is such a BS word. And I can do a whole other seminar on what I believe about paying your dues. And let me before I get off on a tangent, I do think you have to pay your dues to a certain extent. But what happens is, they have made it so that way when they say pay your dues, that just means indentured servitude, free labor, set up the ring for free for 15 years in your career. And if you ever dare to say, "Hey, I think I'd like to get compensated for being here," well, you don't love the business. I think that's total BS. Okay. So getting back to my main point, wrestlers get stuck not because of lack of passion. They get stuck because of lack of realizing that there's ways to move up and progress in your career and level themselves up. So how do you know there's another room if all the lights are off, right? So here is my whole model. In level one wrestling, there are people that are still, the fresh out of wrestling school, just starting out. They're wrestling cheap or free. Level two in wrestling is they're still brand new, but now they've gotten out of their, local area, so to speak. They're traveling a little bit. They're getting a little bit of money. Level three is when you're at the point where now you're starting to get tryouts, you're getting seen, you're at a regional level. And level four is when you're like on TV somewhere, like a higher level independent company, you're good to go. You have the it factor, and people are like, that guy's on the verge of getting signed. And then the step after level four is your contracted talent somewhere. I'm giving you the very rudimentary version of this right now. And I strongly recommend, please do go to the Superstar Academy, 4 levels of independent wrestling. You'll see it. But then, so once you are aware, right? So for example, if you're 15 years in the business and you're a veteran, you should pretty much hope that you're not still level one working for free at the concession stand. There has to be a logical progression to that. Do you follow me so far? So the logical progression, if you're a level 3 wrestler, level 4 wrestler, if you're 5, 10, 15 years in the business, you absolutely should be level 3, level 4. And it gives you a framework to really say, okay, this is my time in, this is where I should be, this is the road ahead. This is where I really need to be. So now we've defined what these boxes are. Level 1 might be brand new or still hasn't figured some stuff out in the business. Level 2, level 3, level 4, so on. Okay. What you want to do is you want to graduate through those levels as quickly as possible. You want to be able to get flown places. You want to be able to get what you're due at the paycheck window. You want to be able to get the matches you deserve. You want to be able to get that notoriety and tryouts. Okay. But that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen if you're just sitting at home listening to what your trainer said, which is go set up the ring for free for 10 years. And then someday someone's going to say, hey, you know what? That guy over there, he looks pretty good. I like the way he sets up the ring. Let's sign him. It's not going to happen. Okay. So that has begged the question. People have come up to me. They go, well, how do we level up? Right. So that question I'm going to address in this seminar. So there's going to be no fancy PowerPoints on this one. We have a really fancy roadmap to a world-class career. It's going to allow me to be stream of consciousness with you. Okay. I don't have bullet points I want to go through. I want to talk to you very honestly. Okay. So consider this like a fireside chat. Consider this like when you're at a wrestling school and a guest trainer comes in and sits down and talks to you and sets you guys straight. I had that in my career. Okay. I was going down a bad path in wrestling. The former head of WWE talent development came into my wrestling school and said, listen, here's what you have to do. So consider that this, all right? I want to be able to talk to you guys freely and openly, and we are live. So I will take questions. There'll be certain stopping points where I'll be able to take a look at my phone, see what you guys are saying, okay? And we'll do it from there. But I want to be able to help you here today. So this is called the roadmap to a world-class career. And so there's a framework to this, to having a world-class career. And there are things that are obvious and there are things that are not so obvious. So what I would recommend here is considering that this is going to be like one of those wrestling seminar, like if we're at a wrestling school, sitting down and talking to each other, getting to know each other a little bit. I would suggest that you get a pen and paper and a notebook of some kind. And we're going to go through some stuff together. So I'll give you guys a moment to go do that. And I'll just be here for a moment. Yeah, just get a paper and pen, paper, pencil, get a notebook. We're going to go through this together. So there are the roadmap to a world-class career. Okay, there are 4 things that are very obvious, and there are 4 things that are not so obvious. A couple things in the middle. Okay, so we're going to get through them. So off the top of your head, what do you think it takes? What do you think it takes to have a world-class career? And I know that I can't hear you, but just shout it out. What do you think it takes? What do you think it takes to have a world-class career? It would take in-ring mechanics. You have to actually physically be good at the moves, right? So you have to not have 2 left feet. You have to know the moves. You have to have the basics. You have to have the fundamentals. Okay, so after mechanics, what's next? What would you have to have next after the mechanics? So once you have the base down, what's the next level you have to have? Well, yeah, you'd have to have in-ring psychology. So first you have the mechanics, lock up, cut off, headlock, things like that. You have to have, lock up, body slam, headlock. You have to have all the pieces there, all the moves, all the mechanics, because the mechanics keep you safe. The mechanics actually are what, if you're writing an essay, you have to have words. If you're telling a story, you have to have words and paragraphs. The moves are your words to tell the story. So the first thing you have to have is clear mechanics. It keeps you safe. It keeps your opponent safe. When I was doing tryouts, what I would always hear is, "Hey kid, you move really well," right? You want to move really, really well. So you got to have the mechanics down. And then once you have the mechanics down, well, the next level is in-ring psychology. So how do you tie that all together? So in-ring psychology, there's always levels to this, right? There'll always be levels. But, well, first, how do you tell a story? Shine, cut off, heat, comeback, finish. So you know the basic story. Well, what else about psychology? What about the little things? The little things, which is your facial expressions, your movement. What if so even little tiny cleanup details, right? In your mechanics and ring psychology, you get a shoulder tackle, you hit the mat, right? Well, what happens? Everybody, what they do many times is they just roll over for the drop down. It was a really cool trick. Here's a little cool aside. And once I learned this, my matches started looking so much better. Somebody would shoulder tackle me. I take the bump, right? Well, what happens when you take a bump? If it were real life, what would really happen? Well, the real thing would be you'd hit the back of your head on the concrete, right? So what I think it was Joey Mercury from WWE told me this. He goes, take a shoulder tackle, take the bump, and then instead of just taking the bump and sitting there, sell the back of your head like you just hurt the back of your head, and then react. So from there, every time I took a shoulder tackle, boom, I fell down, sold the back of my head. It gave it a little bit more motion, made it look more real. Then I do the drop down. These little small things. So in-ring psychology. Once you have the mechanics, what are the small things that make it look more real? How are the ways to tell the story? How can you draw out the drama in the match, right? And there are levels to this. So there's, basic shine, cut off, heat, comeback, finish. There's more dramatic things. We're like, well, what's the story of this match? So the first is mechanics. The second is in-ring psychology. The third, once you have in-ring mechanics and in-ring psychology, well, what do you need next? Well, what you would need to stand out is a character of some kind, character development, right? Many of you would agree with that. So a character, a gimmick, and it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be a crazy gimmick you're like Fandango or anything like that. You don't have to be like a ballroom dancer, or you don't have to be like Bray Wyatt or anything like that, where you're wearing a mask and you're all like spooky or Undertaker. Character, and that, of course, it could be that, but character has to be something marketable. So it's your marketability, character development, your marketability, your presence. What is it that you're selling? So Stone Cold Steve Austin, right? He didn't have like an outlandish, crazy character. He was a redneck though. And you knew that he drank beer and he liked to kick people's ass. So you need a character of some kind. So the first, you need mechanics. Mechanics gets you on, everybody knows the same moves, everybody's on the same page. Then you need your in-ring psychology. So now that you know the mechanics of the match, how do you put it together to tell stories? How do you tell stories in the ring with your psychology? And the little things here and there to help you stand out. The third thing is character, presence, and something that makes you stand out. So you have to have the marketability. What I would do there is I would take character development and I would also put / marketability. So the first level is mechanics. The second level is in-ring psychology. The third level, character development and marketability. And then once you have a character, well, what else do you need to be a successful wrestler? You have in-ring psychology. You have the mechanics down. You have a character. What's next? Yeah, you need to be able to cut a good promo, because wrestling's about talking, isn't it? So you have to be able to express yourself, communicate yourself, be able to present the matches in a way that's entertaining, entertain the crowd. That could be charisma as well. So do promos / charisma. So here we go. The first four, not 4 levels. So this doesn't correlate to the 4 levels of independent wrestling, but here are the first core foundational principles of being, having a world-class career. You have to have great mechanics, in-ring psychology, character development and marketability, and then also promos and charisma. Does everybody follow me so far? Is this making sense? Is everybody comfortable with all of this? Okay, good. So now these 4 components, these 4 ingredients, this is where most people begin and end, especially locally in independent wrestling. You get into a wrestling school, cool. You got the mechanics, you got a little bit of psychology, you got basic psychology down, you got a little bit of a character, you got some cool stuff going on, you're a little bit charismatic, cool, you're good, you're done. Just move on. But now let me ask you, how many people in wrestling have mechanics, have in-ring psychology, have character development, have promos and charisma, right? It doesn't always work. It doesn't always get people to the next level. So here are the 4 other things. There's 8 of these total. These are the things that aren't so obvious. Some of them are obvious, but some of them are a little bit less obvious than others. So the next thing after that is, and this is very important. Some people say it's not important. It is important to a certain degree, is you have to have a certain amount of physicality in your physical body. You have to look believable as an athlete. So if you have the mechanics, the in-ring psychology, the character development, and the promos charisma, you have all these things, but you're still being held back somewhere. Well, what you got to find out is, well, maybe there's a link in my chain here. Maybe if I looked differently, and I'm not saying you have to be a bodybuilder with abs and a six-pack. It certainly does help. But look at the guys on television. More often than not, they're physical specimens. Roman Reigns, Randy Orton, Brock Lesnar, Kevin Cross now. These guys have an aesthetic look to them. They look tough. They look like they can handle themselves. AJ Styles looks phenomenal. No pun intended. But these guys look like athletes. Cody Rhodes looks great. They look like athletes. And even with mixed martial arts these days, you don't have to be a muscle-bound heavyweight to look like an athlete. You could look like, like Dolph Ziggler, right? He looks phenomenal, doesn't he? So if you have mechanics, in-ring psychology, character development, promos, and charisma, I'll never forget. I was in New England one time, and I was doing a show, and the booker was a mentor of mine, and he's like, well, what do you think's holding you back? I'm like, I don't know what, man. I don't know what's happening. I got a great psychology. I can tell a story in the ring. I got great mechanics. My character's really good. I can cut a hell of a promo. And I go, you know what? I'm doing really good for a guy that's not in shape. That was my exact words. I'm doing really good for a guy that's not in shape. And he looked at me, he goes, yeah, so when are you going to fix that? And I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, if you have all those other things, if you were in shape, what would that fix? I go, holy crap, that would fix everything. I hired a nutritionist. I got in the best shape of my life. So that's not to put myself over. What that is to say, though, is if you have a great promo, you have great character, you have in-ring psychology, you have mechanics, and you're like, you know what? I don't need to go to the gym. It's cool. Like, it's a physical cosmetic business. I am by no means telling you to go out there and look like, a bodybuilder or like a Mr. Olympia, but you should look like you can take care of yourself. Is that fair enough? Right? So that's important. Looking like an athlete is important. And then, so now the next thing is, so you have your physical body taken care of. Now, also, by the way, are there these guys like Big Show, just like these physical specimens, right? So what you got to figure out is physically, in your physicality, do you look like you could handle yourself in a fight? Do you look believable? If you're going to win matches, does it look like it's believable for you to win a match? Like I said, you don't have to be Brock Lesnar. Look at King Kong Bundy, right? King Kong Bundy wasn't Yokozuna, right? He wasn't a bodybuilder, but you sure as hell believe that Yokozuna could take on anybody in that ring. You see? So really, like, pay attention. In FCW, Steve Keirn used to say, would anybody pay to see you naked? If the answer is no, go to the gym. If you look in the mirror and you say, I don't think anybody would pay me money to see me naked, go to the gym. That was an old Steve Keirn quote. My take on this is, if you look like a grown athlete that can handle yourself and realistically win matches, then you're onto something. You're a lot better than half the business. Does that make sense so far? So that was a little bit more obvious, but even though it's obvious, either you or somebody in the business, and that's no shame in this, I was like this as well. Yeah, I got all this other stuff, mechanics, in-ring psychology, character development, promos. I don't need to do my physical body. You absolutely do. Once I got abs and once I got into better shape, it opened up so many other avenues in my career. You don't need it to be successful, but it makes it so much easier. So why would you give yourself that handicap? If that's an advantage, if that's a competitive advantage, take it. Does that make sense? And then so now, on top of physical body, the next thing you have to have, so you have the physical body, the next thing you're going to have is a solid mindset. And what I mean by mindset is inner game. Now, this is where it gets a little bit less obvious. In wrestling, what do they tell you? They tell you to pay your dues. They tell you to be nice. They tell you to be humble. But they'll mess with you, won't they? I've experienced it. I've experienced those like, hey, come to the tryout. Well, what are you doing here? Well, you told me to be here. No, we didn't. Hey, gain 20 pounds. Great. Hey, I'm back. Hey, did you get fat? No, I gained the 20 pounds you told me. I'll lose 10. Hey, you know what? We love your character, but if you were to grow your hair out, that would really make you stand out. Cool. Come back a month later. My hair's out. You know what? It doesn't look good on you. Shave your head bald. Shave your head bald. Why do you look like that? What's wrong with you? Right? They will play mind games with you. And if they're not playing outright mind games with you, what they certainly will do, and not they, right? But what the business will certainly do as a business in general is it's not always going to give you what you want when you expect it. I was talking with a very high level guy, and what was happening was he was promised a couple of things, and he had a couple of tryouts. I'm not going to mention any names. And what happened was he had a tryout. They told him no. Then he got a call back, and they said, hey, we want to give you a second tryout. He went to the second tryout. They told him no again. Now he called me up and he wanted to quit the business. And even worse than that, he's like, I'm done. Right? Now, everything worked out great for him. But there's going to be moments in this business where you're not going to get what you expect right away. They're not going to give it to you easily. And you might think that you're worth a certain dollar amount and they might not agree with you. There's going to be ups and downs in this business. So what you have to have is you have to have the mindset and the inner game to be able to survive anything that this business throws at you. It's more than just moves and psychology and in-ring stuff. It's more than just having a good character and having a promo. The people that make it are the people that have like nothing can rock them. The people that make it are the ones that have absolute inner certainty. And this isn't as obvious. But if you think about it, the people that have made it to a high level have very, very strong beliefs in who they are, strong beliefs in what they can offer, and they're firm in what they can bring to the table. So you have to have this mindset, this inner game of being able to handle anything that comes your way. So then the next thing after that is you have to be able to outreach to promoters, network to promoters. So if you have could you have all the mechanics? Could you have all the in-ring psychology? Could you have a great character? Could you have really good promos? Could you have a decent body and be pretty confident in yourself, but then still have no bookings outside of your local area, right? Absolutely. It's totally possible because they haven't developed the skill. The promoters and trainers haven't given you the skill to reach out to other promotions in an effective way beyond just, hey, I'd love to be at your show. If you give me a shot, I'll set up the ring for you. There's a step-by-step process. There's a way to be able to flip this, because what you want to be able to do at a certain amount of time, you want to be able to flip it where that way the promoters, you're not trying to qualify yourself for promotions. You need to flip the script to the point where promotions want to bring you in and you're qualifying them to see if you're going to go work for them. There has to be that switch in psychology at some point later on. It might not be at level 1 or level 2, but once you start getting high level 3, level 4 independent wrestling, there's going to be a flip where you're going to go for quality over quantity. And you're going to have to make sure that they're the ones that are after you. So do you have a system in place to get consistent bookings? Do you have a way to reach out to promoters in a way where they're going to be moved or inspired or think that you're, the bomb, so to speak, and bring you in to work for them? Do you have a predictable way of making that happen? That's something you have to look at too. What are your systems like? How do you get bookings? Can you do it at will? Is there trouble there? And then so finally, on top of all of this is the it factor. If you have the mechanics and the in-ring psychology, the character development, the promos, the physical body, the mindset, the inner game, the outreach, confidence around money, right? Well, by that time, hopefully you do have the it factor at that point, right? But let's think about it, right? Is it possible to have the best mechanics, the greatest in-ring psychology, the greatest character development, promos, but still have something that's missing? Still not have that factor that just makes you step up over the edge. That's like, this is a must see. It's an intangible, right? There is a way to teach that. We have a seminar called called Discover Your It Factor. And we can take you through a process step by step to help you discover yours. But it's an intangible thing. And I can't just hand it to you and say it's there. You have to discover it inside you and then let it out. Okay? So here are the 8 things that you need to have a world-class career. The first thing is you have to have solid mechanics. These are the first 4. The first 4 are obvious, which is, these are the ones that most wrestlers know about. Solid mechanics, solid in-ring psychology, character development, and marketability. That's huge too. Is there a way to make money and merchandise off of what you're doing? So you have to be marketable. And then promos and charisma. That's the first 4 levels. And now the next 4 levels, though, is a focus on your physical body, your physicality, right? Looking like you're legitimate, looking like you could win matches. The next level up from there is your mindset and your inner game, being able to handle anything this business throws your way. Absolute confidence. And then the next level up from there is outreaching and confidence around money and being able to ask and having promoters seek you out and being a must-see performer and being able to predictably get clients and predictably get bookings and predictably get, into different promotions. And then the top of this pyramid here is discovering your it factor, knowing what that is. That's like the holy grail. Okay. So if you were to make this as a pyramid, very simple, you would make 8 levels. And if you have a paper and a pen in front of you, I would suggest that you do this. So draw a triangle on your page that's like 8 lines up. And now the base, it goes mechanics at the base, in-ring psychology, and the next one is character development, and the next one up from that is your promos and charisma. And it's character development and marketability. And then I link those 4 up. I make like a little, like a little connector line, like a little bracket. And those first 4, those are the 4 basics that all wrestlers should have. And now if you want to be an outstanding wrestler, though, and have a world-class career, the next level up from that are the wrestlers that have a focus on their physical body, their appearance. And that could even be your gear, world-class gear as well. So physical body, your presentation, how you show up. Do you look like a wrestler? You look like an athlete? Do you have you have a great presentation? And then up from there is your mindset and your inner game. So be unstoppable confidence, being able to handle anything this business throws your way. And then next level up from there is outreach, confidence around money, and then finally your it factor up on top. This is your little pyramid here. So these things are very, very important that you're able to develop and grow consistently. Now, well, let's do a little self-check. Because now, is it possible, we talked about this before, to have great mechanics and then have no in-ring psychology? And what happens? Is it possible to have a great physical body, though, but have no in-ring psychology, no mechanics, no character development, and you're, dumb as a rock, you have no mindset? So you might be the greatest, looking guy locally, but you might not be able to make it. So none of these things by itself will get you to massive success. A couple of these things will get you there faster than others. But here is what I like to point out. If this was a wheel, if your career was a car, and these 8 things were the wheel on your car, what you want to know is, do you have any flat tires? Because depending on if you have any flat tires, that's going to affect the smoothness of your career. You follow me so far? So really follow me on this now. Say you had great mechanics, great in-ring psychology, and a great character. I'll give you the character too. But your body was at a level 0 out of 10, and your confidence was at a 0 out of 10, and you couldn't really cut a good promo. Let's think about this. You had great mechanics, great in-ring psychology, you had a pretty good character, but your body was at a 0, you had no confidence, and you couldn't speak. What is the likelihood that you would have an easy time making it? Would it be easier or more difficult? Okay, it's like what I told you about before. I'm talking to my trainer. Hey, you know what? I'm doing really good for a guy that's not in shape. Yeah, well, how much faster would you be if you were? Or what if you were someone that had a great, a great level of self-confidence, you're incredibly confident, but you had no mechanics, you had no in-ring psychology, you had no character development, and you had no charisma. But you were very sure of yourself though, right? Well, that might actually open up some doors, believe it or not, right? It probably would. But long term though, those other areas would have to rise to the occasion. Now, here's what I want to show you. Remember how I told you the first four on the pyramid were like the average ones, and the top four were the ones that were not so average? Watch this. If you had someone that had great in-ring mechanics, great in-ring psychology, great character development, they had a great character and great promos, does it guarantee that they're going to make it? Yes or no? Does it not the likelihood, does it guarantee they would make it? Okay, now let's take a look at this. If a wrestler only, forget the first four things. If a wrestler only had a phenomenal physical appearance, looked great, not a bodybuilder, but just looked like a celebrity, right? And they had a killer mindset where they had unstoppable confidence, nothing touched them. And they knew how to reach out to people, they knew how to talk to people, they had a certain level of confidence around asking for what they wanted. And when they walked in a room, they turned heads because they had the it factor. But they had no experience with promos or character development or in-ring psychology or mechanics. They only had the top four. Realistically, if they were to walk into the Performance Center, what do you think Triple H would say to them? Or wherever you want to go? They'd say, hey, would you be interested? We'll teach you the rest. You see what I'm saying? I'm not saying that it's fair, but we have to admit that it's true, or it's at least a possibility. People with the top four have a much easier and faster time than people with the bottom four only. Okay? But that's not what we want to do. We're not here to teach you just to have the top four and forget about wrestling. We want to have a well-balanced, well-rounded career. So if we're going to be a world-class athlete and a world-class wrestler, we're going to make it to the top of our game, well, we have to have all of these things in succession. And we have to be measuring them constantly. So let's take a look at where you are in your career right now. So here's what I'd like you to do. Draw a big giant circle on a page. Draw a big circle, a nice neat circle. And then draw an X in the middle of the circle. So now you're going to make like a little pie chart. So draw an X down the middle of the circle and then draw a plus sign in the middle of that X. So now what you've just done is you've created like a pie chart. So you should have 8 slices, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there should be 8 for the 8 things we just talked about. So now what we're going to do is we're going to label these. And we're going to take a real honest look at where you're at in your career. This is going to be the wheel of your career. We talked about if your career was a car or a vehicle, if you had a flat tire, how smooth would your ride be? Because you have to have all of these things. So let's take a look. Now, label each one of these pieces of this puzzle. Label it mechanics, label it in-ring psychology, label it character development and marketability, label it promos and charisma, label it your physical body, label it your mindset, your inner game, outreach and confidence, and then finally the it factor. Or if it's easier for you, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever that is. And now here's the game we're going to play. We're going to call the middle of that circle 0. And we're going to call the outside of the circle 10. So around like spokes on a wagon wheel, right? The middle of that wheel is going to be 0 and the outside of the wheel is going to be 10 for each one of those spokes. So just draw a little dot in the middle there. And then at each one of those spokes, just put the number 10. So 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, all the way around. So 0 is the middle, 10 is outside. And now rank yourself from a level of 0 to 10, with 0 being the worst and 1 being the best. Draw a line across where you feel your mechanics are. And so if it's a 10, fill your mechanics up all the way to the top line. If it's a 1, draw it up like just a little bit off the bottom, right? Or if it's a 5, draw it right in the middle. But draw a line between, in that pie chart. So what you're going to do, it's almost like a pizza that you cut in half, like sideways. So draw a line right across. And now for in-ring psychology, give yourself another rating. 0 being the bottom and 10 being the top. Where are you at with in-ring psychology right now? And draw another line right across. And be honest with yourself. It's okay. Like, we don't have to lie to ourselves or make ourselves feel better. This is so we know where we're at. We got to know where we're at if we're going to improve. And now, so character development, give yourself a rating from 0 to 10. 10 being the best or 0 being the worst. What level do you think you're at? And draw a line wherever you think that number is. And now for promos and charisma, draw another line in the next pie chart. And now for your physical body, from 0 to 10, rank yourself where you think you are on your physical body. 0 being the worst, 10 being the best. Give yourself a rating. An honest assessment. And now, as far as your mindset and your inner game, what level you're at there? 0 to 10. And fill it up to the top if it's at a 10, in the middle if it's a 5, nothing if it's a 0, and anywhere in between, just fill that up. And then, as far as your ability to get bookings at will, your outreach, or people reaching out to you, like your ability to get bookings and your confidence around asking for what you want in the business, give yourself a rating there, 1 to 10, and draw a line. And then finally, rank yourself where you consider yourself on having the intangible it factor, from 0 to 10, wherever you think that is. Okay, so now what you're going to do is you should have all these lines. Now let's connect all these lines and like make them darker. So you should have a pretty cool shape here in the middle. All right, it should look like little panes of broken glass, right? And so just outline the line, and even up and down, like that vertical line, that center line from 0 to 10, like the border between each of them, even highlight that in too. So that way you make a nice thick border. So that way you can see the shape that all of these make. Okay. And if you wanted to, you could even fill the shape in, like, so kind of just make it darker. You can make the whole thing darker and just see the shape that shows up there with this. And now, so here's the $1 million question, right? And be honest with yourself. And nobody's going to have perfect 10s all the way around, right? That's just the truth. But what you want to be able to do is make sure that these things are equal, or you have things that are really, really important at the high level. And what you want to be able to do is over time, make your weaker points better. So here's the $1 million question. The shape that you've made in the middle. If your career was a car and these were the wheels and this was the shape of the wheel, how smooth of a ride are you going to have in wrestling, getting to your ultimate goal? Is it going to be smooth sailing and then boom, right? Is there going to be potholes along the way? Is it going to be smooth sailing with a couple little bumps here and there? Or is it relatively smooth all the way? And now there's not one or the other. Now, maybe you're smooth all the way around, but you're at like a level 2 or 3 for most of these things. That's okay. But what the good news about that is that you're even all the way around. And what you're going to want to do is progressively grow each of these over time. And there are ways that you can do that, right? Or maybe you're huge in one area and you're lacking in another area. Well, good. Well, now you know what to focus on a little bit more to even that out. The goal isn't perfection. This is always going to be like a blob, like it's always kind of like moving a little bit. There's always going to be one a little bit lower, one a little bit higher. So the goal of this isn't perfection. But what we really want to be able to do is look in a real honest way. Is our career going to be smooth sailing, or is there going to be some challenges here? And this is the fastest way I know to be able to identify this now quickly. All right. So in the comments below, I'd like to take a look. What are some of your strongest points, and what are some of the areas or the room for you to be able to improve and grow on? I'm not going to call them weak points, but what are your strong suits? What are some of your biggest strengths? And where are the opportunities to grow a little bit? And let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear it. And if you have a plan to increase those in the next couple of months, well, let me know. What do you think you can do to make that happen for yourself? So is this making sense so far? And so, like I said, if you want to have a very, very smooth sailing career, the object of the game here is to make this so that way the wheel is as smooth as possible. And over time, it doesn't matter if it's all zeros or all tens or whatever. Over time, you're going to want to smooth this wheel out as best as you can and grow it as much as possible to the outer rings. Now, if you do that, right, has there ever been a wrestler throughout history where, and now, like, look, if this was the old model where it's mechanics and in-ring psychology and promos itself, you could be a great local journeyman but not be seen ever again. But let's take a look at this. Has there ever been a wrestler that had tremendous mechanics, that was a phenomenal athlete in the ring, that could do all the moves, that had the greatest in-ring psychology, that had a killer character that was marketable as hell, that had great promos and charisma? Now, if they only had that, they might be overlooked somewhere, but then add on to that, they had a great body physically. They look like an athlete, maybe not a bodybuilder, but they look really athletic. They had absolute confidence. They could network with anybody. They had confidence around themselves. They asked for what they want, and they had the it factor. Has there ever been a wrestler in the history of wrestling that didn't have some variation of all 8 of these at a high level that hasn't been on a major national company? Really think about this. So if you were to start to raise up some of the areas that need some growth, how much more likely would it be for you to be able to get the tryouts that you want? For you to be able to ask for what you want as far as finances go? For you to be seen as someone that's worth being flown places? Usually what you find out in level 1, level 2 is it's all about the first 4 things, okay? And even more so than that, it's all about, mechanics, moves, do cool stuff, come up with a cool character. In level 1 and level 2, it's really many times it's only about mechanics, in-ring stuff, and coming up with a cool character. But they're missing so much else that goes with this. If you want to have a sustainable career on your terms long term, that's going to create a world-class career, Hall of Fame worthy career, this is how you're going to do it. Is everything making sense so far? Are there any questions? So I'm going to go take a look at the Facebook group right now. You're going to see a big white flash on the screen because I have to move my cursor over. But I'm going to take a look here and see what some of the feedback is and where you guys might be at. So give me a second. I'm going to go take a look here at Facebook. I want to make sure that you guys are all there. There we go. See some comments there below. Let's take a look. Strengths, promo, psychology, Anthony. Promo, psychology, character opportunities, physicality, inner game, outreach, great. Plan, get with Big Rick on nutrition and seek coaching, awesome. Bradley Zeus, knowing how to treat folks is important, great educational seminar. Watched it. Okay, awesome. You guys are on the right track. So perfect, guys. Let me know how helpful was this to have this spelt out for you in this way, right? I know this is a little bit different than what we've done before, but I think this is really important because I don't want to see you. You guys deserve to have an incredible, thriving career. You guys deserve to be able to make it to wherever you want to go. And I don't want to see you just get stuck and forget. It's not about what I want. It's about what you guys want. You guys don't want to be stuck just because some local promoter somewhere said, hey, the only way to make it is pay your dues and have really good in-ring psychology. That's going to be doing you a disservice, and you're going to be spinning your wheels, no pun intended, right? The wheel of wrestling, right? You're going to be spinning your wheels for years and years and years at a time, and you're not going to be making any progress. It's one thing to focus on these core elements that all wrestlers should focus on, the first 4 things, but it's the second 4 things that are really going to make you a must-see performer. And all of these things have to be in balance, because otherwise you get that thing like, hey, such and such got signed, but he's just a musclehead. He's not even a good worker, right? You don't want that for yourself either. So you want to make sure that even if you have a good physical body and great confidence in the it factor, that you're still a phenomenal worker. So that way there's no heat. You follow me so far? You got to make sure all of these things are working together. So this is the seminar for today, for this month. I hope you get a lot out of it. If you have any questions, please post them in the group. please post them in the Facebook seminar. Please post them in the Facebook group in general or below in this thread. I'd love to see them, love to see your feedback, love to see what you've really got from this and where you're going to grow. And yeah, I will see you back here in March for another tape study. We're going to do another tape study this month, and then we're going to do another in the month. So let me know your progress. Let's not make this something you listen to and forget. Like actually, like come back to this and be like, hey, since last month, here's where I'm at. Like I want to see you guys be able to grow. So all right, guys, this is Jared with the Inner Squared Circle. I will see you next time, and have an awesome rest of your month. Take care. Bye.